Golden State Media Concepts bring you Book Review Podcast, a haven for bookworms of all ages and the widest genres, from mystery to memoirs, romance to comedy, fantasy to sci-fi. If you love to read, this is the podcast for you. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Book Review Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Sarah, and first of all, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving and a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend, whatever you happen to do. Ours was lovely, pretty quiet, pretty laid back, but just what we needed, or at least just what I needed. Lovely and laid back suited me just fine, so that was good. Second, holy buckets. This is my 200th episode. Holy buckets. I mean, I know it's been 3 years or something since I started doing this podcast, but can I just say holy buckets? I never ever thought I would do 200 book review podcasts, or podcasts in general. I mean, never even crossed my mind if you'd asked me that 5 years ago, which is why I'm never good at that where do you see yourself in 5 years question, because who the heck knew I'd see myself? I never would have said, well, in 5 years I plan on having done 200 plus podcasts. Yes. No. And I probably wouldn't say it in that voice either, but hey, I'm happy and it's exciting, and I maybe will eat cake or something to celebrate. I don't have any cake. I'll have to find something to celebrate with. At any rate, I'm going to celebrate with whatever, and you are hopefully going to celebrate with me as we have another author interview today. This one is really fun. I mean, I know I say they're all fun, but hey, I can be completely biased and say they're all fun, but this one is really fun because not only is it a children's book, but it is also a Christmas themed children's book. So if you are looking for, I don't know, children's books don't really fit in a stocking, but, maybe a stocking stuffer, sort of, or to go under the stocking or whatever. I love getting books for Christmas. But anyway, if you're looking for a Christmas gift for one of the children in your life, you might want to check out this book. I am speaking with Michelle Olson today, and she is the author of, it's now a series of books because this is the second, and they feature a character called Norman the Button. That is the name of the first book. The one that we are talking about today, and the one that I have copies to give away of, is called Norman's Gift. So, here's the description. Norman the Button has forgotten to get his best friend a Christmas gift, and time is running out. With big dreams and a small budget, he sets out to find the perfect gift to show his love for Freddy. But when his extravagant gift ideas don't work out, he must settle for something made from the heart. Now, that is a description, obviously, of Norman's Gift. It's a children's book, so I could now proceed to tell you the entire plot in the next couple of minutes, which I actually did with my mother. And after I read this book, I was talking to her on the phone and I told her the entire story because I loved it so much. I'm not going to give away the entire plot. I just want to say that this book is so sweet. And I say in the interview that it's sort of ridiculously hilarious, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, this story is about a button, and this button does all sorts of things that you would not expect a button to be able to do. He has a relationship with Freddy, who happens to be a teddy bear, and Norman is his nose. Yes, Norman is the button nose of Freddy the teddy bear. So there's that. See, ridiculous and hilarious, but in a good way, like adorable. I don't want it to get, I keep saying this, I don't want to give it away, but I will say that I thought it was very sweet, very adorable, and the pictures are amazing. So instead of artwork, well, it is artwork, but drawn pictures, it's photography, and Michelle does the photography, and it reminds me a bit of those I Spy books. Have you ever read those? Because those are photography. My nieces went through phases of I Spy books. I spent so much of my time trying to find things. Thankfully, you don't have to do that in the Norman books, but they evoked that same kind of just beautiful picture quality. And Michelle has a great eye, and she puts together the cutest scenes for Norman to be in. I've actually started following Norman on Instagram and Facebook, and Michelle just has this wonderful eye for putting Norman in funny, quirky, adorable situations. So I'm going to stop gushing. I do want to say again that I do have copies of this to give away, so stay tuned till the end to find out how to win a copy of Norman's Gift by Michelle Olson. In the meantime, let's go ahead and chat with Michelle about this book. Michelle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Sarah.
Thank you for being here, and I'm excited to talk to you about your new children's book. It's called Norman's Gift. Before we get to the book, though, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about yourself, that would be great.
Sure, yeah. I live just outside of Seattle, Washington, with my husband and 2 kids and 2 dogs and a whole bunch of other random animals that find their way into our home. And I mainly work for my husband. He has his own company, and in my spare time I started writing these books, and I have so many more ideas, and hopefully I'll have a lot more books available soon for everybody.
Oh, wonderful. So it's a sweet premise. Talk first a little bit about just Norman before we get to the specific book we're going to talk about today. Talk a little bit about Norman and what was your inspiration for Norman?
Yeah, so I guess I should talk a little bit about the first book, because you kind of need to know the ending of that book to follow into the second book. So Norman is a button, and in the first book, he falls off his coat, which was his job as a button, was to hold his coat together, and he goes on this journey to find a new job. And at the end of the book, ultimately his perfect job ends up being the nose for a teddy bear, and that teddy bear is Freddy. And so that leads into the second book. But Norman, originally, I can't really say exactly how I got the strange idea of doing this, but I had the idea of the story of Norman first, and I realized, I read a lot of books to my kids. My eldest is 14, so I've spent many years in the library thumbing through picture books, and there's not a lot of books that use photography for their pictures. And so I kind of was thinking, I wonder if I can take a button in this story and use a real button and just kind of Photoshop him a little bit and make him into a character that is endearing and still relatable. So I kind of just made this a challenge for myself to see if I could do that. And so we did several pictures, and I just fell in love with them, and I was like, okay, I got to make this story happen. And after the first book, Norman, it was just so much fun, and I'm just loving the whole process of it. So that led to the next book, and then now I'm working on the third book. So yeah, it's just it was kind of just built on not seeing this type of story in children's literature right now in picture books. It's mostly cartoon illustrations for the storyline. So it was a challenge for me, and I hopefully for everybody who reads it will get what I got out of it, and see that he is just a lovable little guy and having fun on his adventures.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you brought up the pictures, because I was going to ask you about those. Well, first off, Norman is a red button, and you've given him little copper wire arms and legs, which are adorable. So how much of the staging and everything, do you do all the staging and positioning of Norman for the pictures?
Yes. Yeah, so for every picture that I do, I have there's several Normans, and this is funny story. My mom was up visiting us, and I was prepping a picture because I do a lot of Norman photos on Instagram. I just do random things, random scenes that he's being silly in that I like to post. And my mom was visiting, and she follows him and sees him on Facebook and in the book and whatnot. And she saw just a regular button laying on the table, and I was gluing in his arms and legs, and she got so sad because it hit her that he's actually a real button, and he's not he's not alive, and that this is, there's this process that I go through when I'm making pictures that it's, aside from the eyeballs and the eyebrows, it's all a real image that really exists in the real world. So yeah,
right.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, that must be a lot of work in terms of setup and getting the right Norman and in the right position and everything.
Yeah, it can be, which is why I do a lot of posts on Instagram. It keeps my mind going as far as thinking of silly situations that he could be in, but it also kind of pushes me to practice with the photography and his positioning and whatnot to make his emotions come through, and then that kind of helps later when I do the books. I feel like the second book is even better than the first because I'm learning more on how to manipulate him and make his emotions seem real, considering he's a button with just eyeballs. So yeah.
Button with eyeballs seems to be the perfect segue to a break, don't you think? I don't know, I just made that up. At any rate, it is time to take our first break of the podcast. When we come back, we'll be talking a little bit about Norman's Instagram page, which is fabulous. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back.
Golden State Media Concepts Social Media Podcast. Time to hashtag everything. We talk about all the fun, crazy stories on social media. From Instagram to Facebook, Twitter to Tumblr, or probably even Friendster. Join us each week as we explore the quirky side of social media. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Social Media Podcast.
It's simple, such a sad song. The one that we rely on to get us.
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast. I am speaking today with Michelle Olson, author of Norman's Gift, second in the Norman the Button series. And let's go ahead and get back to that interview. Okay, I'm now on Norman's Instagram page, and he is giving you a tip for Thanksgiving about mashing sweet potatoes or potatoes under the tire of your car.
He's got a lot. He has a lot of followers on Instagram and on Facebook, and it's only been maybe like a year and a half, and people are just, it's funny because I have a lot of followers who are younger kids, like the teenage group, which, has nothing to do with picture books. They just find him funny. And he has even, over the past several months, he was invited to be a reporter at a national button show. So I was photoshopping him into these different photos that I was provided by one of the people from the Michigan Button Society, and he was kind of this roving reporter for them. And now he's been invited by the National Button Society to be the kind of the mascot for the junior button division. I'm still learning about this because this is a whole new thing I didn't even realize when I started this. But
right,
he's kind of just spreading out into other things, and aside from just the picture books. He's just kind of, being silly in his own way, and people are just loving him, and it just makes my day. I love the comments that I get from people who get it. They get the humor of the silliness and just roll with it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that he's been invited to be a roving reporter and be that's really awesome. But let's talk about the new book, Norman's Gift. Yes. It is a Christmas story, so it's perfect for this time of year. And you don't want to give too much away, but can you give us a little bit of the premise of the story?
Yeah, so it's a book about friendship mostly that just happens to be set during Christmas time, and Norman overhears that his best friend Freddy has gotten him a Christmas gift, and he kind of freaks out a little bit because he didn't plan on anything for Freddy. So most of the book is his journey to find the perfect gift for his best friend, and he starts off believing that the best gift is going to be something expensive and extravagant, and that's really the only way to show how important their friendship is. If it needs to be something grand so he can get this this point across. But as he goes through his different failures, he realizes that it's really something small and thoughtful and something made from the heart that is really a gift that is the best type of gift. And I kind of wrote this story, as from my perspective as an adult, and you see these commercials about all these expensive toys and jewelry and whatnot, and the media persuading us to believe that it's got to be an expensive gift. If you want to show someone how much you love them, it's got to be this really expensive thing, and that's not the case. And so it was kind of a way to incorporate that for kids by writing this story and hoping that they will see that it's not the money that is important. It's not how grand the gift is. It's how much thought you put behind it, and your friends, your loved ones will appreciate a gift like that much more than any store-bought item that you could get.
Yeah, and you said expensive gifts. At one point, he's thinking about buying a car. I can just imagine him with the big bow on the car, because those are all the commercials that we see this time of year.
Exactly, right? I know. Who gets a car? Yeah, crazy.
Right. Is there really a market for those giant bows, or is it just?
I don't even know where you would buy one.
I don't either. So, what do you think it is about Norman as a character that resonates with not only young readers, but with their parents who might be reading the book to them?
Well, I think that when I created Norman, I made him have I guess like a childlike mindset where he's small, but he's determined to do things on his own, and I'm hoping that kids can see that he's like them. He's tiny and things are hard to do, but if you keep trying, you'll eventually reach your goal. And that was kind of also the message in the first book that I'm trying to keep going with him, that just if you keep trying and if you want something bad enough, that eventually it will happen. So that was really my goal for the kids. For parents reading, I always enjoy when I get books from the library when I'm reading with my youngest, that books that have a little bit of humor for adults that maybe the kids don't really get, but there's a little bit of silliness in there that is mainly just for the adults, that they can kind of chuckle a little. There are some puns in there, and definitely some images that were thrown in mainly just for the adults, so that they can get some joy out of this book that they will get, that maybe their kiddos won't quite understand yet.
And I mean this in the best possible way. That when I finished reading it, I was like, well, that was just hilarious and ridiculous all at once.
I know. I know.
And that sounds like a backhanded compliment, but no, it's what I mean. As an adult, I was like, I'm going to read this again.
Yes, and that's and so he's a button. So anything he thinks is I can just make up anything, right? Because there's no buttons out there. We don't know what buttons think. So I can really just put in the most ridiculous ideas for him, like, oh yeah, sure, this is possible. I might as well just try this, but I can't because I have no experience doing this, and I'm messing the whole thing up. So yeah, it's fun with him because I can just really do whatever, and it's okay because he's a button.
Right. And what do you hope that readers will take away from the relationship between Norman and Freddy?
That they are really good friends, and they care about each other. And as you can see from the gift in the end that ultimately that Freddy had gotten for Norman, that Freddy is a very thoughtful best friend bear, and they know each other well, and any that the thought behind the gifts were really personal for each of them, and I guess just to be a good friend and to understand each other, I guess, would be the best thing for them to take away from their friendship.
Right. And, they're very different. I mean, one's a button and one's a bear,
right.
But they are best friends, and they have a very symbiotic relationship, so it works out well.
Exactly.
What age group do you think is best for this book?
So I have it listed at ages 4 to 8, but I think that I've done several readings now, and I think that kids between 5 and 8 is probably the best age group, because they're still, they get the humor of it, but they're still young enough to believe that Norman is real. And at the end of every reading, I get somebody asking me if Norman is a real button. So I think that age group, they'll find it funny and also get the magic and still kind of believe a little bit in him. And somewhat like Toy Story, when you watch Toy Story as a kid and you go in your room, you're like, are my toys really alive? And it's the same kind of thing. Are my buttons really talking to each other, kind of thing. So yeah, that age group is really probably the best.
So see, if you have kiddos in your life who are in that age group and you think they might like Norman's gift, you should definitely either get the book or enter our giveaway, one of the two, or both. Whatever. We're going to take our second break of the podcast, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the teacher's guides that Michelle provides for these books. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. from news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and the conclusion to my interview with author Michelle Olson. We are talking about her book, Norman's Gift. And on your website, you have teacher's guides for both of the books. Mm-hmm. Do you work with classes and schools?
Well, so both of the teacher's guides, I'm super lucky that I have a lot of family members that happen to be in the teaching field, and the two guides that I have available were written by my sister-in-law and my husband's aunt, who is a retired teacher/principal. And the first book, they just both of them sat down on the couch and started throwing together this wonderful teacher's guide, and they did same thing for the second book. So I have them as excellent resources for providing information and resources for teachers out there. And then I also have been just super lucky in that my youngest is still in elementary school. So over the years of publishing, I have had several teachers that have been able to give me feedback, and the school librarian is, she's all about these books. And so I'm just, right now is like the perfect time that I could have started this journey, because I have a lot of people out there to kind of provide reviews and information on how I can make these books not only good for parents to bring home and read to their kids, but for teachers to use in classrooms as a model for teaching certain different lesson plans.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you for that. You mentioned that you are working on the third book, and it would appear that you are introducing a new character. So what can you tell me about, let me get this right. Let's see, Bonnie, it's great alliteration. Bonnie Blue Button is a bully.
Yes.
Dang it, Bonnie Blue Button, why are you a bully?
Well, so this book also has Norman in it, but the main character is a new character, Bonnie, who is a sparkly blue button on a dress, and she is very much a bully at the beginning of the story. And she kind of goes through a traumatic experience that results in her losing her status, I suppose, as a fancy button, and she kind of just gets rejected and experiences the bullying that she was showing to other buttons. So she kind of goes through this transformation and learns in the end that, of course, kindness is the best way to go. And if you want to get some good friends that actually care about you, you need to be a kind person, button, or whoever. So right. Yeah, that's mainly what that story is about. And I'm having so much fun with it, because this story is actually a rhyming story, which is a first for me, but I'm learning that I really love to make rhyming stories, so maybe I'll continue with that.
Oh, fun! I am very excited. You mentioned earlier that you started writing in kind of your spare time. You work with your husband. writing something that you've always wanted to do, or did you just kind of come into it from noticing that there weren't those types of photography books?
Right.
How did that come about for you?
So, well, interestingly enough, when I had gone to college for a completely different career. I started working in the scientific field, and I went and I got my master's degree, and everything I wrote had to do with science. It was protocols and methods and whatnot, and it, completely lacked any kind of creativity at all. So there was a good 6 or 7 years where I didn't, everything I wrote was very formal and matter of fact, and that was it. And then I had kids, and going and reading books all the time, it just kind of, sparked the creativity. And when my grant had run out working as a research technician, and I came and I started working with my husband, I had more time, and I finally, it's like, this is a good opportunity to do this. And with that crazy idea of Norman, I just decided to move forward with it, and here I am now. Just that's total transformation from what I had been doing earlier. And ironically, it is very much the same story as my first book, Norman, when he was searching for his perfect job, and my life kind of paralleled the story, ironically. And here I am now making silly stories.
But that sounds very fun, actually.
Oh, it is very fun.
Do you have advice for aspiring authors, especially maybe people who want to write children's books?
Yeah, I guess my advice mainly would be to take criticisms lightly, and listen to reviewers, listen to your beta readers, and your editors, and don't take it personally. Don't take what they say as as a criticism. Take it as advice on how to make your story better. That is definitely something I went through with the first book. You fall in love with the story and the pictures, and you want everybody to like it as is, and you don't want to make any changes. And that can be I guess a hard pill to swallow, is to listen to what other people have to say, and especially if it's negative. But I know that with the first book, if I hadn't made the changes that that were suggested by my editor and reviewers that I had sent it out to, that it wouldn't be as good of a book as it is. And I was lucky enough that for that book, Kirkus Review had named it one of the best indie books of 2018. And I really owe it all to the people out there who had helped me make the story better and make the pictures better. So it's really, accepting other people's advice, and not taking it as an insult, as just as a critique that you can use to make your work better.
Thank you. Do you have favorite books that you've read with your kiddos through the years?
Yes. I really love of course, the classic Dr. Seuss books were always fun to read. I love the Franklin books because they always had a good lesson, which is something that I try to incorporate into my books. And I got a lot of inspiration from the books. I'm not sure if you've ever seen Terry Borders' books, the Peanut Butter and Cupcake or Happy Birthday Cupcake. They're also the same. He uses photography and inanimate objects for his books as well, and they're really, really funny. And it was his books that I would just laugh to pieces about with my kids, and it kind of helped me realize that yes, you can use inanimate objects and photography and still make a book funny and endearing. So his books were definitely some of our favorites.
Mhm. And what do you like to read when you're not reading with your kiddos?
Well, it's mainly been picture books lately because I really try to get a lot of inspiration. But before before kids, and when I do have time, I really love mystery novels, or I've always been a really big fan of Stephen King and his. It's completely opposite of of what I'm doing, but I love a story that can really freak you out, and that Stephen King and any kind of horror or mystery, ghost story or anything like that has always been fun for me to read, and hopefully I'll have time one day that I can get back into that.
Well, I wish you luck with that.
Thank you.
I know you have a website, and that
Mm-hmm.
you and Norman both have some social media. So if you could tell
Mm-hmm.
people where they can find you on the internet.
Sure. Yeah, so my website, it's bellybuttonbooks.com. It's also under Michelle-Olson.com. I have both domains. And if people want to go there, they can download the free teacher's guides, and there's some coloring pages and some other activities with Norman. And they can also order an autographed copy of the first book on my website. And as far as social media, he is very present on Instagram and Facebook under Norman the Button. So definitely follow along, because I post a lot on there for people, just for a daily giggle, for those of you who want a little humor on their feed.
Yes, I can always appreciate a little humor on my feed as opposed to some of the other things that clog it up.
I know, right?
You mentioned you mentioned the coloring pages and stuff on your website. There's also a section for fan art, which is really adorable.
Oh yes, I have done. So for whatever reason, there are people on Instagram, some even teenagers, like to draw him, and of course I'll post it on my website. But I also have had coloring contests in the past with Norman, and there are, gosh, I don't even remember what's up there now. I need to go through it. But I had a coloring contest with some kids that the prize was to have a photo of them with Norman photoshopped into it. And so I'll do those kind of contests every once in a while, and it's just so much fun. I had a little girl who had won, and her artwork is up on the Norman fan page, and she was so cute because I photoshopped Norman into the picture with her, and she was 4. And talking to her dad, he said that she saw the picture of her with Norman, and she just like stared at it for 5 minutes because she couldn't figure out how suddenly Norman was in this picture with her.
Oh, I don't remember Norman being there.
Yeah, like, this is so weird. So yes, I love to do fun contests, and at the end of my books, I have my my website information there, so that people can go on there and download the stuff. And if they want me to put their art on my my website, I would love to, because it's so much fun. People just really have made all sorts of silly stuff.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we've talked about Norman and Freddy. We've talked about your books. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you wanted to mention at this point?
Oh, I don't think so. I think that's was mainly the the main points. Yeah.
Okay.
The second book is doing really well. This Christmas story. It's got already a starred review from Kirkus, and yeah, I'm hoping to have the next book out next year, because once I get the manuscript done, the pictures can go rather quickly. So hopefully I'll have this next one out next year, and yeah, I'm really excited about that.
And people can order from Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all that.
Yes, all the books are available on Amazon, and I'm also really encouraging people to buy books from IndieBound. IndieBound.org. They can look to see if the books are available in their local indie bookstores, or they can just order it from there. I know that I've had several people ask if there was another way to order it other than Amazon, and that is another route if you want to support your local bookstores.
Wonderful. All right. Well, Michelle, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the book, and I enjoyed speaking with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you once again to Michelle for joining me and for putting up with my fangirling about Norman and Freddy. I loved the book, as I said, and as a thank you to you, my listeners, you know I like to do the giveaways. So if you are interested in winning a copy of Norman's Gift by Michelle Olson, all you have to do is go to one of our social media pages, either GSMC, Book Review, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and comment on this episode. It's episode 200, interview with Michelle Olson, and comment on that this post with your favorite childhood Christmas gift. Mine is, I had a million, and there was a million books that I loved and still love to this day, but I think my favorite childhood Christmas gift, and the one that I still have, was from my very first Christmas when I was 8 months old, and my mom's sister, my auntie, made me a teddy bear. And she made him. He was bigger than I was at 8 months old. He was quite big. She stuffed him with nylons, cut up pairs of nylons, which is fascinating. He has since actually had to have his nose replaced. He has been very, very well loved. He is actually still upstairs on the bed in my guest room to this day, many, many years and decades later. And I named him Teddy, which isn't very original, but it's my favorite childhood Christmas gift. So comment on our social media pages your favorite childhood Christmas gift, and you'll be entered to win a copy of Norman's Gift. Thank you again to Michelle. Thank you, as always, to you, my listeners. If you are a fan of this podcast, you know my spiel at the end. Give us a nice review, please. That'd be awesome. 5 stars would be a great Christmas gift. Comment on our post, share, like, follow, retweet, do all of those wonderful things. Subscribe, please. Really helps us out, and I would appreciate it very much. Hope you're having a wonderful Tuesday. Hope you continue to have a great week, and I hope that week involves time for you to get yourself lost in a good book. Thanks.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Book Review Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.